Good morning and welcome to this Gravity Payments webinar, Food Delivery on Your Terms. My name is Bobby Powers. I'm the head of learning and development here at Gravity Payments. And we're really excited for this webinar to share a little bit about what our team has been learning about food delivery services and some of the different options that are out there in the market. So before we get started today, a couple quick housekeeping items. First is that at any point in time during today's talk, you can click the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen and type in a question. We'll take a few questions at the end of this webinar, and you can type those in at any point in time, and we'll get to those as they come in. Second is that we will be sending out all of the materials from this webinar along with a follow-up video to every registrant. So if you happen to have to jump off a couple minutes early or something to run off to another meeting, we'll send that out in a few days here after the webinar. So it's my pleasure to introduce today's speaker, Austin Kameen. Austin is one of our deployment and equipment specialists here at Gravity Payments. Austin's been with the company here for a few years, and he recently has been running our Gravity team that's working to eliminate some of the headaches and costs that are associated with food delivery for restaurants. So he has been leading this exploratory effort to try to find out more about food delivery services. So we work with a lot of restaurant clients, and we know that that's been a big need in the market, is finding out a little bit more about food delivery. So Austin's one of our resident experts in credit card processing equipment in general and online solutions. And I'm excited to introduce him and hand it over to him. Austin?
All right, beautiful. Thanks for the strong intro, Bobby. Good morning, everyone. And as he mentioned, welcome to our delivery webinar. Thank you all for joining us. Basically, we get to jump right in. So essentially what we're looking to do, and if you haven't heard of our other webinars, we're looking to put out useful information for the chance to, or that we've had the chance to come across, digging into and working as a credit card processor, which consists of some surprisingly interesting areas. As the email intro suggested, and as you all likely know, the need for delivery and takeout as an alternative to the standard dine-in model has pretty drastically increased with everything going on. Just not really an option to kind of keep going with what everybody has known so far. But just because there's a need for it doesn't mean that, as far as I've seen, there's a great amount of information out there to make the decision easier for you all. Most commonly, in fact, we saw restaurants and businesses just kind of falling into third-party app or delivery just because it was the most available and well-known without knowing any of the real pros and cons. It was just kind of there. Now, to be honest and frank here, there is not going to be one easy solution that works for everyone, for all of you. And that's what we're kind of looking to present here. We're going to go over the options, including the apps and self-managed tools that we highlighted, including one called QuestTag, in the hopes of giving you essentially the information and help needed to find the answers to these questions for your business. Now, the two main options for delivery are likely the ones you've already thought of yourselves: delivery through third-party apps or self-managed delivery. This would be essentially the kind of thing that you would imagine a pizza place offering back in the old days before everything could be ordered from a cell phone. Starting with the most recently popular, which would be the third-party delivery apps, I have pretty much been gathering everyone's attention for the convenience they offer, both to customers and restaurants alike. Features like ease of setup, no worry over managing drivers, and access to their third-party marketplace are some of the most noteworthy benefits that they offer. We have a little bit of a presentation here to help kind of guide along there. So you don't have to just remember all these things. And again, these points and this should be available to you at some point afterwards. So it's not like this all needs to be remembered. This is just information to get things started. So again, just kind of going down the list here. Beyond that, we essentially have another strong one, which is the drivers being provided for you. Now, this is managed or also improved upon by their third-party marketplace, and because that also gets your business out there, it gets a little bit more attention to something that might be up and coming. These, of course, come with downsides in the form of extremely high fees, very little control over your delivery process, and kind of the company image that goes with it. And you can't decide what the drivers do in your name, so to speak. And being locked into their pricing structure for delivery overall, just some shady practices that they've also been known to employ. I really do hope none of you can say that you've woken up to a website built by them in your name without your consent, or customers that have been diverted from your side of deliveries to theirs. But sadly, that's probably not the case. So what's the alternative then? Well, that's where self-managed delivery and QuestTag come into the picture. QuestTag is essentially a platform to help facilitate and streamline in-house delivery, a way of easing your own handling of orders, all at a much cheaper cost. There should be a benefit to it, and that's the primary one. Now, compared to fees as high as 30% of an order that we've seen these third-party apps charge, the cost for services like this, and this one specifically, is free at its lowest tier, which is still completely functional and something that I can imagine myself using if you're just able to keep your delivery orders under 1,000 per month. That's pretty notable, but if you do go beyond that, then you're seeing a fee of 10 cents per order for the regular plan. So those are essentially going to be the two key numbers to keep in mind there, 20 to 30%. That number is going to vary, and if you've already been using these delivery services, you should have an idea as to what that is for you compared to 10 cents per order. Other benefits for it come in the form of control that you'll have over the delivery process, being able to handle the experience or customer experience from start to finish, and of course, controlling the costs so that you can decide what your customers want or pay for delivery. Do you want to hold a promotion to make things a little bit cheaper? Do you want to encourage delivery for a short period of time? Well, that's all things that you can do by reducing the costs, increasing costs for certain areas, essentially just having control over that. You also don't have to worry about sudden changes in pricing from something increasing your costs, or really any of the legal trouble associated with them, as we've seen some of the states start to regulate some of these third-party apps and how they manage their drivers and your business. Downsides for all this, as you may have guessed, revolve around having to hire your own drivers and have someone delivery or manage the deliveries for you. It's also going to take a bit more to make sure that everything is properly set up and that your drivers are covered to do the proper driving. Beyond that, while the service can be used on its own, another potential problem is that it does work best with an online ordering service through your site. So if you can kind of imagine going to your website, having a button that you click and it says, cool, let's go ahead and go through your menu. You pick what you want, automatically sends you to a checkout page that then automatically puts in the order for delivery or takeout, depending on what the customer prefers. Or those have become very common and very easy to set up, generally including just putting in a button to your site. But that's kind of a different topic and probably not something we're going to go too much more detail to here. If you do have any questions there, it's something that, as you imagine, as a payment processor, we've seen quite a bit of. So feel free to go to our website, and there's going to be our contact information there, easily accessible, or a contact form you can fill out for any questions, and we're happy to help there. Now, essentially, we've gone through the two main options for our delivery. So it might be being asked, what is our recommendation then? Well, here are some ideas that we've really come up with. For instance, one of my personal favorites is consider both. Depending on your business, one of the many ways that you may end up running is that you may just want to be able to use both options together. This is where we get to be a little bit more creative and experimentative, as there's nothing that really prevents you from doing both concurrently or just getting a bit more ingenuitive when it comes to your model. This model, for instance, would use a third-party app to get started with delivery before driving repeat customers back through your own site to get the better rates and experience. We tried this in one of our accounts where we were testing this with originally, and using this pamphlet, which essentially just highlights a few of the pros and cons of ordering from a third-party app as compared to your business. This would go to a customer and essentially in the order that you would package for a third-party app. The RSA was branded and actually had a link to the online site, so it kind of managed that whole customer flow. But the idea was that through something like this, you could drive customers back to your site for future services. We're going to go ahead and jump back one slide to some of these ideas. So it essentially is just a matter of being creative as to what you can do. So one other idea that we came across is that you can go ahead and try and do things like expanding what your business sells. We saw a very creative idea that some restaurants have started offering ingredients like pizza dough or do-it-yourself food kits that you can prepare at home. The last one, I love the idea of, as I'm a cook myself, so I just had all the ingredients that I could then make a fresh meal at home. Maybe I'm overhyping it, but I just love to see things expanding like that. And that was an amazing idea that this could help facilitate, because this allowed them to essentially set up a once-a-day delivery around the city to anyone who ordered. So this is another interesting way of diverting. You can have your deliveries mainly through your app, and then maybe you want to do a one-time delivery for products that can go all around the city, so that it's a lot more or less management for you. Other things that we can do is, well, asking yourselves, do you get along with your neighbors and the neighboring restaurants around you, or you just want to work with them to save some money? Having one driver between you to deliver all the orders for a small region of restaurants sounds like a great money-saving strategy if you have the people around you to be able to facilitate that. Another question, do you offer alcohol and want to start capitalizing on drink deliveries along with food? This one can depend from state to state, so please do look into it to make sure that you're doing everything safely and legally, but it is another option to offer a better experience and more convenience and more profits all around. So just ideas that can be used to change how the business model that you're currently using looks. Essentially, to conclude, hopefully this has given you some good insights into what options you have available to you, some of the ups and downs of each of them, and some of the creative ideas into new ways that we can all get through this. In the best scenario, if you find that you are now happy with your delivery option, knowing some of these things, well, I think that's a pretty good win too, just knowing why and having the information to answer that. So I know we did just go through a lot of information, a lot of little points. I'm going to jump back here since I think this will be one of the more interesting ones to just focus on right now. If you have any questions or thoughts at this point, feel free to throw them in the chat, just like Bobby mentioned a little earlier. You can hit the little Q&A button at the bottom and just type in things right there, and we'll go ahead and answer them.
Great. Yeah, thanks, Austin. So I'll come back on and help facilitate the Q&A here as we have questions streaming in. A couple quick questions to get us started. So Austin, you mentioned that you have personally had some experience with this food delivery setup and using that company called QuestTag. Can you tell us a little bit more? What is QuestTag and what's been your experience with them so far?
Absolutely, and great question. So QuestTag is essentially a tool that lets you imitate the look and feel of the third-party app delivery system. So I guess the best way is just to explain what the workflow would look like through this. Essentially, if you can imagine an online ordering or an online order through your site, customer clicks the button, it says, cool, here's your menu, you put in everything, and then they hit deliver, it says, all right, this is going to be delivered now. And you would get a notification on this QuestTag app on your phone, and that would say, an order has come in, it is going to this address for this person, this is the delivery time that they want to have this come in through, and you would also likely receive this through your kitchen, through the online ordering service itself. But as the delivery driver, you would now know, okay, I need to pick up this order at this location, your restaurant address, and then I need to pick it up at this time, deliver it to this address, and once you're ready, you push the button, it automatically opens up maps to where you want to go, and then it just sends you on your way. You deliver the order. As it's going, it sends notifications to your customer, so it'll ping them and say, hey, your order is now ready. It's been picked up. It's on its way. And finally, once it's delivered, it'll confirm that it's been delivered. You'll mark it off, and you're done. So that's essentially the workflow that it helps with.
Okay, so it's a self-managed delivery app. It's basically like a substitute to Grubhub or Uber Eats, but minus the drivers, right?
Yep, exactly.
Okay. And then I know you had mentioned to me before this webinar that you had actually used that to work with a small business of ours that we work with here at Gravity. Tell us more about that experience.
Yep, absolutely. We did get to work with that a little bit. Essentially, we wanted to make sure that this was actually worthwhile and recommending. So yeah, we found someone who was interested in the idea of trying an alternative, and I got to drive for them along with some of my colleagues. Honestly, I felt the experience was an extremely positive one. I couldn't really find any faults with it. I know it's not like you would expect me to just sit here and tear something apart, but essentially the workflow for me was extremely simple. I was waiting. I can imagine myself working. I got a notification. I walked to the business. I said, hey, is the delivery ready? They confirmed it was. Picked it up, hit the button. Off I was going, met the customer. And they now have the photo identification so that you don't have to get in contact with anybody with COVID. Took a picture, confirmed it as done, waved them away, and I was basically back at it. I can't see anything wrong with it. It was a very good experience in my mind.
Nice. Yeah, that's good to know. So I want to jump into a couple of the audience questions that have come in. We had one that's a little bit more specific about QuestTag. Can you talk a bit more about how to get set up on that platform? Do people order through your restaurant or through the app directly? And what steps are needed for them to get set up on QuestTag?
Yep, great set of questions. Tackling some of them out of order perhaps, but your customers would not order directly through QuestTag. They will order through your website. So the main step is that and one of the cons I mentioned a little bit earlier is that you will need some online ordering system to really effectively do this. To get set up, I would recommend reaching out to our team at gravitypayments.com and asking some questions there if you don't already have some ideas as to your online ordering system. They'll be able to help get some better recommendations for your business, because depending on what you're looking to do, I can't just offer this will fix everything for you, unfortunately. But to get set up with QuestTag specifically, they do have a website, questtag.com. You can go over there. Essentially, it's a free setup to just play with it and get started. And there is not going to be the need to really even sign up with a credit card or anything like that to get started. So if you are curious and just playing around with it and exploring, I'd say it's a great way to just get going there. If you're also interested in continuing, then we will actually do have a code that will work with them for, I think, 3 months of the 10 cents per order regular plan that can be used with the Gravity 2020 code, a note that will include in kind of the post wrap up section and email that'll go out to you all after the webinar.
Okay, so Gravity 2020 is the promo code, and that gets people 3 months of free delivery service on QuestTag. Is that right?
Yep, exactly.
Okay, great. And then another question came in about QuestTag. Do you know if QuestTag works at all outside of the US?
So QuestTag is developed as a worldwide app. It does have mapping services throughout. It's basically integrated through Google Maps and Waze, depending on how you want to go about it. So realistically, anywhere that Google Maps can take you, it will be able to. The main downsides might be, for instance, I'm from a pretty remote area, somewhere off, but in that area, some of the mapping can be a little bit odd. So you might have some difficulties there, but if you've been able to use Google Maps, you'll be able to use QuestTag.
Okay, perfect. Next question that came in is, any suggestions on how we might approach hiring drivers?
Yep, absolutely. Realistically, this can really depend on how it will work for your business. If you have people already kind of on staff that you can utilize, that's been an approach that we've seen with a couple restaurants that we were running through this. Essentially just had some extra time, and the time commitment, especially to start, is generally somewhat minimal. Obviously, if you have a lot of orders come through already, this might be a little bit different for you. But so they started just using the extra time their staff had. For drivers otherwise, I mean, this will basically just be another employee. However, you would hire a server or something like that. pretty much the same process. They are going to be an employee of yours. There is going to be a little bit of knowledge that needs to go into it as far as making sure that they are covered to drive for you. It will vary for state to state, but that knowledge, as far as I've found, has been pretty accessible online depending on which state you're in. So I would say just do a little bit of research there, and then pretty much the standard hiring process for your staff.
Okay, great. And then I think the option you mentioned of using your current staff, I think that's a really interesting idea. So I know there are a lot of restaurants that had gotten the PPP loan, for instance, and in order to get paid back for that loan, they had to have the certain amount of headcount. They had to be paying employees to still stay on staff. And so if you happen to find yourself with people that sometimes are waiting around, like on shifts that are a little bit overstaffed, then those people basically, Austin, you're saying would be turned into delivery drivers, right?
Basically.
Okay.
And it's a great point and addition there, because that would be a way to hopefully, even if you need to bring on some people that might have been furloughed, so that you can hopefully capitalize on that salary return that might offer you.
Okay, gotcha. Next question that came in, can you share what you know about getting insurance coverage for drivers? Right now, in many places, delivery insurance is being added as a free rider on normal auto coverage, but that's neither universal nor a long-term solution.
I mean, it can be a long-term solution, honestly. I can't offer specifics. I am by no means a lawyer, and Gravity Payments can't really offer insurance suggestions to any feasible degree. I do get to do deliveries as part of my job. Personally, I can use my own insurance for that, so it seems to be a viable solution to look into. But I would say that you will need to look into that based on your state, and essentially contact whoever is managing your insurance to potentially dig into some more questions there, because unfortunately we just won't be able to offer a satisfying answer there.
Okay, gotcha. Next question, you mentioned that you've worked with one or two businesses already using QuestTag. What were their experiences like? What did they like and dislike?
So we did, I suppose, trying to think of any major cons that we saw. There was a bit of an adjustment period. It was essentially they hadn't done delivery before because they didn't particularly care for the way that third-party apps really handled everything in their practices. So getting adjusted to the delivery process, essentially, even something as small as setting aside their takeout orders from their delivery, was just a bit of a change. You know, it was a new thing that they had to get used to. Other than, you know, the standard, oh, this is different and now we have to adjust, I can't think of too many other problems that we really ran into. I mean, they put an order out for delivery and we delivered it. The pros, I think, one that they really cared for is the fact that once they started doing their delivery, they got to be a little bit more hands-on with their customers. They're a bit more local and they love to get to know their community. And so now when they delivered an order, the customer basically got to sometimes deal with the owner of the business themselves, just because they enjoyed doing that. And so it really increased the return customers, just because it created a much more community vibe. You're not just getting some random person who you're never going to see before waving off with your order. You now know that, you know, someone related to the business. You and customers do get a little chatty once you deliver their orders, have a little chat. And they really like that feel of being more of a part of their community. So that was a pretty nice plus that they mentioned to me.
This next question comes in from Andy, who says, are customers expected to tip drivers? Does the software process that data?
So especially with the COVID situation, all tips are managed through the online ordering platform, just for, you know, the security of the drivers and making sure that less transmission as possible. So the tip is handled through the online ordering. When they're placing their order, it'll ask them for a tip. Beyond that, it does have a section to accept cash tips if you happen to receive them, but there's no section for receiving a percentage tip, like you would imagine through a credit card, or as you would do at a, you know, restaurant that you go to eat to.
Okay, awesome. Well, Austin, I want to make sure that we have enough time to wrap up here and give the audience a couple quick takeaways. So we'll stop with questions at this point. Just a quick reminder, we'll be sending out this information to everybody through email here in the next few days. And Austin, just to wrap us up, what are the main 2 or 3 takeaways that you would want people to remember from this?
Great point. I would say first and foremost, don't feel like you're really stuck into one option. The world of delivery has very much been kind of pushed as you have the one choice, the commercially accepted, customer-friendly choice. But really, there are a lot of creative and amazing approaches that we've seen have not only improved the customer experience for you, but also improved profits because of offering new ways to market to new people. So new ideas, always think of those, especially related to delivery. It's not just a one-sided coin. Ask yourself whether or not your system is currently working well for you. You know, if you have something already, then compare it to some of the things that we've talked about. Would you be able to save money if you had someone driving your deliveries? You know, if you can assume about how many you see come through on an average day, and just start to think about how that balances off compared to your employees' wages. So whether or not it's worth it for you. And most importantly, I would say if you're not doing any form of delivery, I would pretty strongly recommend it. I haven't seen a single real downside to doing it. Obviously, I cannot speak for every restaurant. You are all going to be the experts there, but it is something that I would strongly recommend looking into, even if it is just through an app or through self-managed, or again, both. One way or the other, you're probably going to come out on top, or at the very least, you'll have a better reason as to why you know that it's not for you.
Yeah, at least you don't feel like you're stuck into accepting this one solution of like the Grubhubs and Uber Eats of the world. Because that's
Exactly.
the way that it really has been pitched for years, is that if you want to do delivery, you've got to do this. It's good to know that there's something else out there.
That's the idea.
Well, Austin, thank you so much. And for those of you that are joining us today, you can visit us at any point in time on gravitypayments.com, and you can get more information about Gravity and the credit card processing services we offer. You can also see info about future webinar talks like this one on gravitypayments.com/talks. So Austin, thank you again. Thank you to all attendees, and I hope everyone has a good day.
Yep. All right. Well, thank you all for your time. And like Bobby mentioned, I hope you all have a fantastic rest of your day as well.
All right. Thanks. Bye.
Bye.